Hello, Heatseekers. It's the Heat Sheet. Seekers, it is another episode of the Heat Sheet, everybody's favourite wrestling news podcast, split across two countries to bring you one tabloid full of wrestling news. I, as usual, not normally, because Stephen hosted last week. I'm Kris Jack. I am the editor-in-chief of this week's edition of the Heat Sheet, and competing to get their stories into a fictitious dirt sheet this week are Lewis McNaughton and Steve Roche. Lewis, how the devil are you this evening?
Good, not bad. It's, to be fair, it's one of the first weeks in many years that I've actually actively gone out to tell people I like wrestling. So that must be a good omen that it's getting a bit more mainstream and a bit cooler. So my week's been filled with telling people how did you watch Raw? Did you see The Rock? You know The Rock from the movies. You know him. He's back in the wrestling. You should watch it. And a few all right.
Good stuff. It's good to see that you've managed to escape Philip Schofield's broom cupboard as well.
I did. I decided that the fucking laptop that I'm using is 20-year-old. Maybe doesn't offer me the best, or the viewer the best quality sound or experience with me cutting out every 2 minutes. So I'm using an old trusty iPhone in the comfort of my own bed. So as per, we are very professional and very well informed.
Good stuff. And what about yourself, Steve? Steve Roche there, last week's host, back in the bullpen, I think they call it in journalistic terms. How's your week been?
I'm great, mate. I got my new telly delivered this week, and well chuffed with it, right in time for WrestleMania. So looking to use that, and of course we're going to the Easter weekend, so I've got tomorrow off. So a nice long lie-in to look forward to tomorrow. Can't wait.
Brilliant.
So that's what your mid-30s is. It's just looking forward to a long lie-in, isn't it?
It is until you get kids, and then you realise that lie-ins are the stuff of fantasy. Lie-ins are in fact kayfabe when you become a parent. But you mentioned Easter there, Steve. You mentioned Easter there, and I thought, seeing as it is the time that we celebrate the death and rebirth of our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, I'm going to put it to you guys. Which current wrestler do you think should disappear for a wee while and come back resurrected with a brand new gimmick?
It's hard to look past Jericho just now, isn't it?
He is the master of the reinvention.
Exactly. He's done it so many times. He is the Jesus in a way of wrestling. Only he's done it 5 or 6 times. But I think now he really needs it because it's just so cringe just now, and he's kind of he's whoring off the younger talent in AEW, like stuff with Hook is just a bit, and he just wanted to kind of bugger off for 6 months and maybe do one last run that works, and then for him to retire. So Jericho would get my shout in that one.
It's a good shout. You've gone with someone that does have history of that sort of reinvention, that resurrection of the character. Dare we even say we should start calling him Christ Jericho? That's maybe a wee bit blasphemous. I do not know. What about yourself, Lewis?
I don't know if I'm cheating a wee bit here, but it fits the bill of resurrecting. I've got a new gimmick for the Undertaker.
Oh,
it's along the lines of, when Festus back in the day, the bell rung and he turned into a sort of maniac and was ready to go. I don't know how that would fly in 2024, but hear me out. So instead of the Undertaker, he's going to be the Overbaker. And what's going to happen is before every match, his ritual's going to be, he likes to cook, he likes to bake, but his trigger's going to be the fact that everything he cooks is slightly overdone. So it just puts him into a frenzy and has him winning every match. So 1 week he'll come through with a slightly overdone creme brulee down to the ring, a few knackered fairy cakes the next week, a Victoria sponge that's black on the bottom, and that'll just every week it'll just get more intense to the point where he has to go away for a bit and come back, go away for a bit, go to anger management, all that sort of nonsense.
This reminds me
But-
of my favourite "Your dad sells Avon" joke. Your dad's a goth who works in Greggs and calls himself the Underbaker.
You could even take it a step further, and instead, you know how like the Undertaker came out with Paul Bearer, the Overbaker could come out with Paul Hollywood, with just a big bag of flour. oh!
But Overbaker, book it.
I love it.
Whenever
Right,
whenever a new customer comes into the bakery, he goes, "Hello, hungry person."
Eat my breed. Aye. So that was class. That was two good picks there. And now we're going to go through all our picks for getting into this week's heat sheet. So as usual, we are looking to fill the front page, the back page, the gossip pages, and the telly pages of our fictitious dirt sheet. We also have a centrefold this week, the first of. Well, one of the first that we've actually done a full interview that's just our interviews. Billy's been great on the extra hot and whatnot, giving us some interviews over the past few weeks. But this week we have Northern Irish comedian William Thompson as our centrefold. He's on to talk with us about the WrestleMania comedy show that he's putting on at Black Box in Belfast on WrestleMania Saturday, and just his general love of wrestling and what comparisons he finds between doing stand-up comedy and stuff in and out of the squared circle as well. But we will get cracking on. We've got two pages to fill before we get to that, the front and the back page. And we'll start, as always, with the front, the biggest wrestling news story of the week. So, Steve, I will come to you first on that. And I think, well, before we came on, we kind of discussed that this is probably going to factor into both of you guys' picks. But I'll come to you first anyway, Stephen. What are you suggesting that we put as the main splash on this week's paper?
I think we've got to talk about Monday Night Raw there. Possibly the best Monday Night Raw for maybe 25 years. I think that was... It's hard to remember a Raw where all of it from start to finish was as highly entertaining and talked about as that. It was like one of those Raws where if one of those events happened on any other average Raw, that'd be talked about as one of the best Raws of the year. Instead, we got like all of them crammed into one. Twitter was just blown up with all the happenings of Raw the next day. It was absolutely wild. You had, of course, the ending with The Rock putting that hellish beatdown in Cody outside, slamming him against the truck, making him bleed, with the rain effect as well. It just looked so good. And talking about Cody's mum all while he's doing it. I mean, that was Attitude Era stuff right there. Then you had Becky punching Dom, like legit punching him, and it's already became like a gif that's trending worldwide. And that was just such an awesome moment. And of course the three-way promo between Drew, Punk, and Seth, absolute golden stuff. We're also hearing that it was only lightly scripted. All three guys got to do their own kind of input with it, and that's great to hear that finally they're being entrusted with going out there and using their own script instead of all this sanitised shite of wannabe Hollywood screenwriters fresh out of university shoving a script in their face that's just garbage, that doesn't get anybody over. So what a brilliant Monday Night Raw. I think the best definitely for 20 years.
It's been getting great reactions. I've not seen all of it yet, but the Punk, Drew and Seth promo thing, it was just absolutely unhinged in all the best ways. I mean, there was some dubious verbiage at some points during it, which I think was just the guys maybe getting ahead of themselves or getting too excited. But the heat that they were creating, not only amongst themselves, but amongst the fans as well. They just pulled no punches with it. It was incredible television to watch, especially when Drew was talking about being the chosen one, and Punk straight in was just like, but who chose you? Tell everybody who chose you, because it was just
unbelievable.
It was so well done, and so it just built everything, because there's been so much talk about the intensity of the Rock's promos and whatnot with the most recent Bloodline stuff, and it kind of felt that the Seth and Drew stuff was kind of being overshadowed by it. But then you just had, Punk is just Punk. He's a fuse that can be easily lit, and when he was let go like he was the other night there, it was televisual magic. What did you think of it, Luce?
I think that if there's one person that you don't give a well, maybe it's backwards. The one person I'd say out of WWE that you wouldn't give a live mic to without much direction would be CM Punk at the moment. But it just shows that when you have trust in your wrestlers and in your superstars, it can make moments happen. That these, like Steve said, that these heavily influenced promos by writers tend to have, they just go the way exactly how you think it's going to go. There's not really many talking points, but when you let them go, they create whatever the fuck that was. But couldn't keep my eyes off it. You never knew what was going to be said, in a lot of these promos. What's going to be said is the same old spiel. But when it's as unhinged as that, it's just must-watch TV. So for that, especially having the faith in Drew to do that, because obviously you know Seth, CM Punk, they've been given a mic a million times, and they've always been in that main event picture, and had that trust. But for Drew to have that trust to really go out there and say what he wants at points and be able to bounce off them as well as he did, and keep himself in the mix there rather than get overshadowed was good to see. So I was ridiculous TV, but one of the best segments I've seen in a long, long time.
What I really enjoyed about it as well, from Drew's perspective, is that you could tell that you can sometimes tell with Drew McIntyre when he is going off script, because he drops the transatlantic accent, and you can start hearing the Ayrshire come out with him in some of the stuff that he was saying. And I find, that if I've been speaking to somebody else that's Scottish for a wee while, obviously being over here in Belfast, I need to kind of tidy up my accent a lot of the time when I'm speaking. But if I've been speaking to somebody Scottish during the day, and I realise that my accent goes back to what it normally is. So maybe on Monday before he went to Mindy's Bakery and went to the, maybe he was having a wee chat with somebody Scottish that's maybe kind of brought that out himself. I'm just surmising.
Still on the front of the radio just before he went on.
That's what it could be. It was maybe on Wigredo. But even that social media stuff that he did where he went to Mindy's Bakery on Monday, that's all part and parcel of him getting under Punk's skin. And it really, really did seem as if Punk was pissed off with a lot of the stuff that Drew's been saying over the last wee while. I'll come back to you on this one, Steve. I've got a question for you here. Do you think that with the intensity that was in that promo, and it's built that programme right back up to an A level, and everything that's going on with the Bloodline one, how does anything else at WrestleMania stand a chance of being as successful as these two storylines?
I don't think it really matters as such. I think they were going to be the two main storylines leading into WrestleMania, no matter what, even if they weren't as red hot as successful as they've been. And it's not like the other storylines aren't getting airtime and not having some success. The Bayley storyline with Damage Ekata was still going really strong. There's still I'm still hearing some people out there saying they deserved the main event night one. And if the storyline was failing, I don't think that those calls would be happening. The Sammy Gunter storyline's doing really well as well. I think it's testament to how well produced WWE is after years and years of inconsistency and dropping the ball with storylines. They've really tightened their grip on it, and I think a lot of it is down to finally giving the wrestlers some creative freedom and giving them some trust with it. And long may it continue. I mean, even the Judgment Day stuff is still, out there, and it still remains interesting. There's still a great what's going to happen next feel to all of that as well.
Awesome. And I'll come back to you on this one, Lewis, as well. We spoke, quite in depth about the Punk and Rollins and whatnot, but a lot of people are saying that the Rock's performance in the kind of the end segment of Raw, where he was absolutely obliterating Cody Rhodes, saying it's the best acting he's done in about 5-10 years. It's been better than anything that he's been paid millions and millions of dollars to go to the cinema with. Are you fully on board with this Rock character? And do you think there's going to be a lot of mileage in it once we get WrestleMania XL out the way?
I think it just depends on his sort of time frame and what he really wants to do. If he's enjoying it, I presume he's going to stick around. And if they've got ideas for him, then why not? But I seen a video that was, you mentioned that that was some of the best acting. I seen a video that the whole time he just kept going, look at this, look at him, look at your boy, look at me, look at that there, look at this. But it just shows that if you have an aura, have a bit of presence about you, then it doesn't really matter what you're saying. You know what I mean? You can make things work. Whereas if it was me standing in the middle of the ring, cutting the most heartfelt promo ever, but I was stoic and it was some of the best writing they've ever done, but it comes from someone you don't really believe it from, then I think that's what the acting's about, making you believe. Even if it's completely not bullshit coming out of his mouth and rambling nonsense, then if it's presented in a way and performed in a way that grips you, then yeah, you could portray it as good acting. And I thought it was as close to the bone and as real as WWE's got in a while. So whether that's him going, I don't see that being very scripted at all. That in there, I think they've just gone to The Rock. We trust you, obviously. You've been in enough things that we don't really have to give you a massive script, and you can put on money performances. So I think they've just said to him, go out there and give him a beatdown, say what you want, see what you like to see, and if it sticks, it sticks.
It was the production value in it as well.
Yeah,
it made it for me as well. I think
and
the
the rain
effect
and
of
everything.
the rain was brilliant. It was like something like a gangster movie.
I know.
And it got me thinking, I'm like, oh shit, they need to get The Rock cast as the Kingpin in the next Spider-Man movie or something. Because it's like that's, I totally agree with it. That was his best piece of acting. I'm thinking, shit, all these years he should actually been playing the baddie instead of the goodie.
The thing is with me as well, it's like the mileage of the character, and if it works. I've obviously, the age I am, I've never really seen The Rock do his thing, especially Hollywood Rock, 2003. I never really got the full effect of watching it live. I started getting into wrestling just before then, but I wasn't, obviously, not much memory of it. But just from seeing all the reaction and everything of Hollywood Rock, as soon as that music hit, I knew it was a Hollywood Rock. I was waiting for it to happen, and even though Hollywood Rock was quite short-lived, I'm sure it was only something like 6 months. Just building up to. Was it building up to?
It was
Hogan,
towards Austin.
After
it was
Austin.
It was the last Austin match.
The third Austin,
19.
yeah.
He came back. He had the rematch with Hogan, and then
Came
then he
back
had the
as
Austin
Hollywood
feud,
Rock.
and then he had the Goldberg feud, and then he was gone again.
Yeah, but I think that paints Rock perfectly. Like sometimes a spade's a spade. Sometimes the Rock is a Hollywood actor, so he is Hollywood Rock. He is Hollywood Rock. So if you present him to be a heel, then put him as arsehole like as possible. Just have him completely better than everyone, If he wants to acknowledge them like that, then The Rock can do whatever the fuck he wants. Don't tell him how he's supposed to do it. Don't tell him what to do. He'll do whatever he likes. And just having The Rock there, I just feel like there's so many more stars. It just paints everyone out to be a bigger star than they are. Like looking at that Raw, The Rock, Cody, Seth, Drew, Punk, Rhea, Becky, even elevated Ricochet and McDonough. Like just how the show ran and the sort of importance of it just made you feel like everyone was more important. So if The Rock's here for a short time, a long time, I just feel like it's making everything else seem cooler and more important. So in the long run, having him around is just going to make everything thrive more and more. Brilliant.
And you mentioned earlier on as well about the kind of the setting of the Rock and Cody beat down and how it was kind of framed and everything like that. One thing that a lot of people have kind of globbed onto is the fact that some of it took place in front of a truck that had a certain Mr. Cena and a certain Mr. Stone Cold. Do you see that potentially as foreshadowing of something that's going to happen at Mania, or do you think it's just a coincidence?
Well, there was stories that came out late last week that they have talked to Cena and Stone Cold, and I think Brock was mentioned as well, because I think they've determined that there was no wrongdoing on his part of the whole Vince thing, and they're comfortable enough to have him back in. And I mean, that it would be amazing. Would the fucking roof would explode? There'd be an earthquake on the magnitude of 9.8 if during the main event the whole bloodline's kicking a fuck at Cody and Roman's about to pin him, and then right at the last second we hear the glass smash and out comes Stone Cold, and we get a face off between Rock and Stone Cold. All the years get rolled back. It would be, I think, for guys your generation, definitely Kris, it would be like I feel young again moment. But it would make you feel 20 years younger. It would be unbelievable, and I hope that's what they've got in store. Because like you say, you usually dismiss it and say, nah, it's just a coincidence, or it's just they're just trolling us. I've got to believe that was purposely set up for something. I've got to believe that was done as a foreshadowing, because we're in the era of subtle storytelling or long term storytelling. There must be something set up there that's going to happen.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely been a Raw for the ages. So the headline that we're going to go with on this, because we can only put this on the front page this week, the headline is simply Monday Night Rawsome. That's what we're going to go for that for. Now, we will turn our attentions to the back page. As much as we love the jaw-jacking and the shit-talking that's been going on Raw, there has been some pretty good in-ring action going on over the last wee while as well. So, Lewis, I'll come to you first. What is your pick to make the back page this week?
No shock to see that I've stayed at WWE for this one. Not seen much at AEW over the last couple of weeks. Just with the popularity WWE is getting, obviously in the WrestleMania season, there's a lot of content to look at, and one match you wouldn't expect to stand out with all the stars that were on the show is McDonough versus Ricochet. That was a match that was a 5-star NXT takeover match, a 4.75 star NXT takeover match. If it had an NXT crowd to it, then it would have been perfect. But obviously, you've got a bit more casual Raw crowd who like the stories as much as they like the ring action. But it was JD's best performance on the main roster, and I would even argue that it might even be Ricochet's best performance, maybe out with the showcase match last year at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And maybe Money in the Bank match he's been in. So this is the best one-on-one match that Ricochet's been in on the main roster, and it's definitely the best JD's been in. It was filled with things you wouldn't expect to see in a match with two superstars with the sort of popularity and the clout they do backstage. Not a whole lot of it compared to others, but there was just classic Ricochet moves, classic McDonagh moves in them. Spanish flies, you had Canadian destroyers, you had top rope, sort of 450s, you had shooting star presses, you had everything you expect to see from a Ricochet match, but going against someone who's as ballsy and as good and solid in the ring as Ricochet has sort of levelled him up as well. And obviously Dom on the outside as well, being just a little bitch like he usually is, added a little bit extra to the match as well. And there was one point where, was it? I'm trying to think back exactly how it was. I think Ricochet went for that one as well, but Ricochet went for a dive out the ring, but Dom jumped in the way, so he did his sort of fake back into the ring, and by that point JD had gone around to the other side, and he just, without stopping, he just went to another rope and flew over the top. It was like an introduction to WWE Speed, you know, the new one that's going to be on X.
Aye.
It was like a promo for that, basically, in the middle of Raw. And the finish came with JD going for his sort of lift-in suplex, and it got countered into a fucking Canadian destroyer, which was sold for over 10 seconds in a wrestling show, which is pleasant to see. And then Ricochet goes up to the top rope, goes for his shooting star press. Dom comes in, and it was someone I've never really seen. Like, he was on the rope, but the ref told him to get down. So he went down, but as he was going down, he flicked the ropes. So Ricochet fucking tumbles off them. JD goes to get him, doesn't, and hits him with another thing that was quite new. Hitting your finishing move from the top rope while they're standing. It's like, why not do that sometimes? You know, RVD, if they stand up, don't just stop. Just go for your frog splash right on them. Jeff Hardy, Swanton, why not just Swanton on the top of his head if he's standing up? So he hit him with a shooting star press when JD was standing, caught him 1, 2, 3, and yeah, it was, if you've got 5-10 minutes to watch a match and you're potentially slightly ADHD like myself, where you can't be, you want to keep your attention as much as possible, this will keep your attention, and more than that as well. So yeah, there's my match of the week, McDonagh versus Ricochet.
I've heard a lot of good things about it. I'm really intrigued to see what this does for JD McDonagh. Being over here in Northern Ireland and around the Irish wrestling scene, the build that Jordan Devlin had before he went over the WWE during his OTT run with his matches against Walter was, you know, some of the biggest and best matches that Ireland's ever produced. And it's taken him a while to get properly over since he's went to America, went up onto the main roster. And I think he kind of suffers a wee bit. And again, I'm sort of plagiarising other podcasts here, but I think he kind of suffers from being looked at as a sort of not even Diet Finn Balor. I think the Finn Balor stuff is obviously relevant because of their look and size and whatnot, and because they're both Irish. But he is a kind of a Diet Will Ospreay in that he's got a very similar moveset. You know, the Spanish flies, the high flying stuff, a lot of the ground and pound stuff as well. But he's just not quite on that Ospreay level. And putting him in, obviously, AEW had Will Ospreay against Shibata on Dynamite last night. Do you kind of feel that putting two guys with similar moveset? Oh no, it was Shibata last night, wasn't it?
Was.
And Takeshita last week. Do you think that it's sort of counter programming almost in that WWE's seen what Ospreay's doing over at AEW, and they're like, who are the closest guys to that we can showcase to have those kind of matches. I mean, the two best guys they've got in the roster for that kind of style are Ricochet and McDonagh.
Aye, because I think Ricochet is the Ospreay of WWE, isn't he? He's the guy that's got the guaranteed high spot moves in him that's going to get the crowd on their feet, and Devlin's got that, or McDonagh as we now call him, is that similar sort of mould, and I think maybe that's the variety they're going for. They're going to start giving the guys that have got the more indie look or the indie style more airtime, maybe to give a bit more variety and counter AEW's product as well. I think that bodes well for guys like Axiom in NXT. I can see more of him as well. Yeah, Dragunov's another one that they'll probably give a main roster push to soon enough. And with the speed thing starting up as well, I think you're going to see guys like Cedric Alexander back in the fold. Guys like who else is Apollo Crews is another one that springs out there as well.
Yeah, like Legado del Fantasma.
Aye, Fantasma as well. Santos Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's definitely an interesting time for those kind of wrestlers, and I think we'll talk a wee bit more. I think about the WWE Speed Show when we get to the TV pages, but in terms of the match that happened on Monday Night Raw, I'll need to go back and watch all of it. I've only seen clips of it in social media, but if they are going to be pushing that kind of style as a sort of counter to, well, maybe not even as a counter to AEW, but it very much feels, like you said, Lewis, like a throwback to Black and Gold NXT, which is, NXT is what it is now, but I don't think it'll ever reach the popularity or the quality of what Black and Gold is. So if Triple H is looking at these guys as being able to bring an essence of that to the main roster, I'm all for it. So that's a good solid choice for the back page. Steve, what about yourself? What are you giving up for the back page?
The AW Tag Team Tournament is in full swing, and there was a nice match on last night, and it was a kind of throwback to, or a rematch in a way, of one of the very early Dynamites that was also part of a tag team tournament, and that was the Young Bucks versus against a Private Party. If you cast your mind back to, Jesus Christ, 2019, it was October 2019, Private Party were a unknown tag team that got a match against the Young Bucks on only, I think it was the third Dynamite, and shockingly they beat them, and it was a real upset and a real kind of jaw-dropping moment, because everybody was certain the Bucks were going to start Dynamite as the tag team champions. Fast forward 5 years, and they've done a rematch of that, and I wouldn't say it's as good, but it was a great callback to what happened. They did the gin and juice move that Private Party are famous for, that Hurricane Rana into a sort of RKO type move. And there was a brilliant spot where it was brutal to look at. Marcus Quinn, who's not long back from injury, and I think it was a back or neck related injury, Nicholas Jackson took him to the guardrail at the outside on the flat bit, put him in a Falcon Arrow position, and actually full on slammed him onto the mat. It looked brutal, and that was great storytelling away, because that's targeting your opponent's weakness, and with the Young Bucks, with this whole EVP heel turn that they've got going, the bullshitters are all saying that we're the EVPs, but we're going to do it all fair and square. We're not going to cheat. But then what do they go and do? They try and they go out and grab their ring bell and try to knock their opponent out when the referee's not looking. So they're back in this full kind of snidey heel role, which I really like. I kind of wish Private Party had won though. The Bucks won instead. I kind of get why they have, because I think with the heel run they're having, you kind of have to see them go the way to the final against, I'm predicting, is going to be Top Flight, or that's what my heart's telling me. My head's telling me it's going to be them and FTR yet again, but I want it to be Top Flight. I just kind of wish Private Party went over here, because I remember saying to you a couple of weeks ago, I really hope they use this tag team tournament to push Top Flight and Private Party again, because they have to be the two tag teams that kind of become the two head honchos, because it can't keep being Thompson and FTR for years to come.
I think they're two of the tag teams that have had the worst luck in the last 2 years as well. It's just when they've got a bit of momentum, Dante Martin's or the leg just snaps in half randomly on an episode of Collision or something, or the same with Quinn. It's just, as they're getting a wee bit of momentum, as neck caves in, things like that. It's just you think the durability these guys have, they'd be able to hack it. It's just something written in the heavens that they don't want those two teams to get to the top yet. So we need to. It's maybe why we need to see more of FTR and Young Bucks of that, but the time will come.
It's good to see that they're back in the fold. As you say, they've had the poor luck with injuries, but getting the prime spots in Dynamite as part of this tournament, I think is a good thing for Private Party. Hopefully as well, it heralds the end of their affiliation with Matt Hardy as well.
Well, that seems to be all gone. But judging by the endings, the Hardys weren't even mentioned by commentary. It seems to be back to them getting their own entrance with the whole bouncer thing, the nightclub effect, and all that. They've taken it back to their origins, and the crowd really love it as well. So I hope, I'm hopeful that they're back by themselves doing their own thing, and it helps them rise to the top again.
I haven't seen Dynamite back from last night yet, but I know that in this tag team tournament, there's a few wild card spots in there. Did they make any announcements last night as to who was going to be filling?
No, I think that was a previous round. It's now because it's now on to the semis, so that's all gone. FTR have got it's a tag team I've not actually heard of. I can't even remember their name. It's something like the
Infantry.
Yes, that's it.
It's Captain Sean Dean and some other guy that's got a military background, I think.
Right.
I don't know. I can't remember the boy's name, but it's Sean Dean and one other fella. Because the rumours were rife last week that the Motor City Machine Guns contracts with TNA were up, and they weren't renewing with TNA. And there was a bit of speculation that they were going to be involved in this tournament if they could get. I think it's as of the 1st of April. But if you're saying that the brackets have already been closed as such,
will they not be involved at potentially Supercard of Honor? Because are they not doing another ladder match, scramble match thing? And there's not a mystery opponent in that?
It could be. My ROH knowledge isn't great, but in terms of that AEW tag division, I know that a lot of people were upset that, or certainly the tournament anyway, there's a lot of people upset that Mox and Claudio weren't involved in it. But are there any other, in terms of the state of the AEW tag team division as a whole, Lewis, how strong or how much depth do you think is in that now that you've got the likes of Private Party, Top Flight back in there? You've got guys like the Righteous, the Infantry coming in. I think there was a couple of Strange Bedfellow tag teams in amongst it as well. How do you see their tag team division pushing on? And do you think that the tag team division is in a stronger state than what the 6-man division is, or the trios division?
I think the trios division's a little bit. I think it's a little bit forced at points in terms of who goes together, and it's not so organic, everything like that. But I think I'd argue that the tag team division in AEW is better than it is in WWE. Maybe one of the smaller the few things that have a bit going for them there. Like you said, you could rattle off more and more teams. Having an affiliation with ROH as well, bringing these teams in when they seem ready or they need a ready-made tag team is always going to be a bonus for them as well. You've got the Undisputed Kingdom as well. Whether your opinions positive or negative on them, you've
Gates of
got
Agony's one that I really liked. Bishop Khan and Twiliona.
yeah.
They're my Demolition. Demolition if they could wrestle.
Mm-hmm. It's just there's more and more tag teams coming in that you'd hope would get some TV time, just to like teams like the Gates of Agony. You want them to sort of announce themselves on a big stage as well. I know that having a big tag team division, often teams can get lost in the shuffle, but if you establish each of them over time and give them as much exposure as you possibly can across each of the three shows, then I think the division's only going to get stronger and stronger, and then you can start to phase out teams like FTR and Young Bucks and sort of bring them in when necessary, as opposed to when you look at a bracket of 8 teams, really only see 2 teams that are going to end up through the tournament, which we've really kind of had for the last 3 years. Every tag team tournament there's been, you sort of predict it from the start, but if you started this tournament again, or gave it 6 months with a new tournament, then I reckon you could have 2 completely different established teams that you wouldn't feel uncomfortable sticking in the main event of Revolution or wherever the finale of the tournament would happen. So yeah, it's in a good state.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, that's 2 awesome picks for matches there. But I think just based on the social media acclaim that is garnered, I'm gonna go with the JD McDonough and Ricochet match from Raw. I've been trying to come up with a headline for it, but I'm struggling. There's got to be something in there about like JD, Jack Daniels, some kind of drink. Drink going down smoothly. In fact, that's what it'll be. JD and Ricochet goes down smoothly. I'll give it that. There's bound to be something better, but I'm blanking on it just now. But well done, Lewis. That was a great pick. Now, we are coming to the Centrefold portion of tonight's episode, which is an interview with Northern Irish comedian and wrestling fanatic William Thompson. Now, if you're not familiar with William's work, he is on many Northern Irish comedy podcasts. You can watch a lot of his stand-up stuff on the BBC iPlayer if you go into the BBC Northern Ireland bit. And he is putting on, along with fellow wrestling fan Dave Elliott, they're putting on a WrestleMania show at Black Box in Belfast on WrestleMania Saturday. We're going to be just talking wrestling, having a laugh, and just in general, looking at the good and the bad of wrestling in a comedic fashion. So I spoke with William a couple of days ago. The sound quality isn't particularly great. William was parked in a lay-by somewhere in East Belfast, I think it was. So there's a lot of traffic in the background. And at the start of it, you'll hear my hubris on being able to tidy up the quality of the audio. So for the next wee while, enjoy our Centrefold, which this week is with William Thompson. William Thompson, welcome to the Heat Sheet. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you very much. I am parked on the side of a busy road because I'm very busy today, so I've had to just pull up my car. But thank you for having me. Apologies if the quality is very low on my end from
That's all right.
the audio stuff.
I'll do a bit of jiggery pokery with that to try and boost
Thank
that
you
up.
very much.
To see how it is. But yeah, we've got you on the Heat Sheet this week. just to talk to you mainly about your plans for WrestleMania. I know that you and a couple of your fellow Belfast comedians are running a show at Black Box here in Belfast about WrestleMania weekend. So tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. I find there's a big crossover between comedy and wrestling, both with comedians and fans of it. You tend to find fans of one or fans of the other, and I'm kind of like, oh, could there be a link? Is there something we could do that's wrestling based, that's comedic, that's a bit of a panel show? That's been something I've wanted to do for a long time because there's so much comedic material in wrestling.
Oh, 100%.
Both the on-screen stuff, and the stories behind the scenes, which, let's be honest, as wrestling fans, is the best bit. Is how mental they are backstage. That's the really fun part of it. So we just decided to do the show. It's on the 6th of April, the day of WrestleMania, so it's the perfect day to do it. And it's just a mix of games, showing some favourite wrestling clips, and it'll just be a very good show. I'm very excited for it.
Smashing. So, obviously, it's yourself that's running it. What other comedians are going to be there? And have you got any local wrestlers lined up for it as well?
Sadly, we haven't got any local wrestlers yet because this is very much a pilot. I just want to see if it will work, if it will sell, and how it will work. Once we do that, we'll probably look at doing local wrestlers, try to get, or take it to like Glasgow, take it to England, try and get some local wrestlers on that. Just on this one, it's myself, Alan Urban, Ronan Linsky, who do a wrestling review podcast, The Worst There Was, about the last year of WCW. It's very funny. Dave Elliott and Jasmine Sierra, all outstanding comics.
Smashing. And I know that yourself and Dave, you used to run your Are You Ready podcast, where you sort of looked at some classic wrestling, classic promos, all that sort of stuff. Is there any plans on bringing that back at all off the back of this?
Probably not, because it was very expensive to film because we did it in a studio, which is kind of why we had to stop it. We couldn't afford to keep doing it. It was a lot of fun to do at the time, but yeah, like it's weirdly, when we put it out, we felt people didn't really like it, and since it's stopped, it is literally every couple of days I will have someone asking me to bring it back, which is weird because we didn't feel like God. People enjoying it.
I think it's one of those things, like we found it as well since kind of going along with the heat sheet. As much as we're into wrestling and we think it's quite a universal thing, it's still quite a niche thing to be podcasting about if you're not like one of the kind of the main news aggregator sites or the Jim Cornette or anything like that.
Yeah, but if you're not reporting on whatever Dave. Someone. Oh, sorry, that break up there. Hello?
It did a wee bit, but I think it's still come through anyway.
That's good. So if you're not an ex-wrestler doing a podcast, or you're not talking about the news, it is really, really hard to sort of do that kind of podcast. I think one of the best podcasts I've seen do it is the Attitude Era podcast, because they have a hook, they have a storyline that they're going to review, and they sort of have that arc. So I feel, if I was to ever do one again, it would be similar. It would have to have a point to it. It would have to have, we're reviewing certain shows instead of just we're talking about wrestling.
Well, that's what I enjoyed about it. It wasn't just the nostalgia factor, the stuff that you guys were talking about, but it was like how you were relating it to yourselves as well. I think there was an episode I remember listening to. I was stuck in traffic in Carryduff one day, and I remember Dave talking about, was it he saw John Cena's dick in a gym?
Yeah, he saw John Cena's dick at Pure Gym. I was like, how big was it? And he was like, depressingly big. You can see why he's so confident. Yeah.
Well, he managed to hide it behind that wee envelope at the Oscars the other week there, so it's maybe not as big as Dave remembers.
That's right. That's because the internet went mad because they're all about their Illuminati and humiliation rituals at the minute. And everyone's like, see, Hollywood's got John now. They've got him.
So talking about You mentioned Hollywood there, and obviously, WrestleMania XL is just a week or so away, and Hollywood Rock has returned to the WWE. What have your thoughts been so far on the kind of the build to this year's WrestleMania?
I think how I feel is being mirrored by how everyone feels. Let's be like what the Mania could have been, how it was looking from the outside of like before the Rumble, when you had Punk and Rollins, you had Brock and Gunther. It looked like it was gonna be, and then obviously those didn't happen, and I kind of panicked when The Rock came out and decided he was gonna face Reigns, and he's doing that weird, that weird character he does online where it just feels like he's trying to sell you protein. And
he's a bit OTT bit.
Yeah, he's just talking about how, inspiration, clanging and banging, and how well his tequila's selling. And I don't like that character. Ever since they made that switch, and it just reminds you of why you love The Rock, when he's a bastard, and he's just calling people fat, and he is doing that thing of going, I am the fucking Rock, by the way. Do remember who I am. And he's that arrogant. I've loved it since then. They brought back the old Hollywood Rock theme, which made me so happy. That's a fantastic theme. I have not been this excited for a Mania in a long, long time, and it's mainly the two main events. It finally
seems like they're getting it. Yeah, it feels like they're kind of getting back to the kind of the fan service side of it. For so long, the main events haven't been what the fans have been wanting. There's been a lot of the corporate side of things, or the business, best for business kind of stuff, where instead of servicing the fans. And obviously, it's been 10 years since the Yes movement and all that, and it's that kind of swell again. It's that kind of feeling.
Yeah, and they went through that period of like 5 or 6 years where they would build up the main event for a year, and you didn't want it from the offset. And you have to sit there for a year as they build it up. And then it happens. The match wasn't good. You knew who was going to win. And it kind of soured you on Mania a bit, because it ended up becoming like very predictable. Whereas this year, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I love that. Roman could win again. That would be great to see everybody infuriated. Even though I want Cody to win, I want to see how bad people melt down if Roman wins again.
It'd be horrific. Absolutely horrific, but in all the best ways.
They'll do that thing wrestling fans all day where, like, I'm never watching it again, and they're straight in the next day tweeting about it.
Aye.
Which I love every time.
I mean, you're talking very passionately. You're obviously, in with the bricks with wrestling, and you're a massive fan of it. How do you get ribbed at all for your love of it by your fellow comedians? I mean, they obviously can see how passionate you are about it as well, but do you ever try and engage them in chat, and they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about unless it's Hulk Hogan?
Weirdly not, because like I said, there's a big crossover with comedy and wrestling, so most of them are huge fans as well, and the ones that aren't know they watched it at some stage, or they know what you're talking about. So the point is, if someone's like, I have no idea who Triple H is, everyone else is like, what do you mean? Yes, you do. You know who that is, and you're just being difficult. I get embarrassed myself if, that I love wrestling. I still do get that little bit embarrassment when I go in, if I'm like up early the next day, and people are like, oh, rough night last night, were you out partying? And I'm like, nah, it was the Royal Rumble. You get a little bit embarrassed. I'm nearly 30, and I'm like, oh man, Brock Lesnar came back. Like, it's so embarrassing. But I've never hid that I'm a big wrestling fan, and people just expect it of me now.
Cool. Now, obviously, with Mania on the horizon, it kind of puts a bit of promotion around the kind of the local wrestling that goes on as well. And over here in Belfast, we're spoilt for the amount of choices that we've got. Do you yourself get out to many local shows at all?
I do when I can. Very, like, with my job, you're often you don't have a lot of free time for events. But when I can, I try to go to OTT. I've been to Titanic Wrestling, which is like a local up and coming one. I've been to that. I try to go to as much as I can because wrestling's fun to watch on TV. It's so much better live. Anyone can tell you that. One of my favorite things to do is go and get so drunk that I forget it's fake or that it's scripted. And I like get so drunk you believe it again, and that's the best way to watch wrestling. I was a huge ICW fan when they had that hot streak a few years ago. I don't know if they do it over in Belfast.
Were you at the Mandela Hall show with the infamous teabagging spot?
Apparently that caused a huge controversy, did it?
I think a couple of the other venues in the tour get wind of it and kind of wrapped Dallas's knuckles for it. But that was one of the first shows that I'd been to after they moved over to Belfast. It was amazing, such a good night. It was an absolute sweatbox in Mandela Hall that night as well. Yeah,
I was front row for that, and I was with my friend at the time, who is not the best looking gentleman. You know what it's like when you're in a wrestling crowd and you walk in, you're like, I'm wearing deodorant. I'm in the top 10% of best looking people in this room.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those things like being it's like being the best looking guy in the Burns unit kind of thing. You're walking into a wrestling show.
My shirt. That's what I don't get about wrestling shirts. Why do they make them so tight? Because I'll tell you this: when I'm wearing them, I'm not in ring shape. I'm never the skinniest when I've got my same. I had a Dolph Ziggler, I bet you wish you could put less off shirt, and it was about it was like a crop top on me. It was horrendous. But I was at that show with my friend, and he'd been drinking, and he was feeling very brave of himself, and started slobbering to the wrestlers, and Drew McIntyre walked past, and he said something to Drew, and Drew just turned around, pointed at him, laughed, and went, "Ha ha, you're fucking stinking," and then just walked off.
It's mad. As a thing, you go to like local shows and stuff, and you see all the guys kitted out with replica belts and the latest t-shirts and stuff. It's like, just save a bit of that for a bit of links. You know what I mean? Like I used to do. I used to do a bit of work with Titanic Wrestling that you mentioned earlier on. I wrestled for them and I did commentating for them as well. And the amount of guys that would turn up, with the championship belts on, and it's always we always said if you're an adult and you're bringing a proper belt to a show, you need to defend it. Because there'd be nothing better than seeing some of those guys, walking away empty-handed with some scrubs with their 400-pound belt.
I love those guys walking in with 20 quid shoes and a 3 gram belt. It's amazing. I love seeing them.
It's all part of the fandom, but it's all part. It's how far you go with how much you love stuff. You'll find that with your comedy as well. I'm sure you've got your fans that will they'll tweet you every so often, and then there's the ones that they spawn to every post you put out or come up for selfies every time you've got a show.
Yeah, there's ones that if we were doing a show abroad will fly out and kind of follow us about, which is weird. We also get those weird, like, autograph hunter people who don't know who we are, but they'll just show up to a show and ask you to sign something. And we always sign different names completely. Like if it was Shane will sign my name. I'll sign...
Class.
Yeah, I'll sign something like Jackie Fullerton. I'll just sign, because they don't know who you are. They just know you're doing a show. So I just sign random names. But I can see why wrestlers get annoyed at that when people show up with fucking 8 shirts and be like, sign this, it's for my kid, but just don't put their name on it.
I know. I can just picture you and Shane and Andy Ryan or whatever coming through Luton Airport at like 3 a.m. or whatever. And and so somebody's walking away with Jackie Fullerton in the back of a ticket, and that'd be amazing. Big class. Now, you mentioned there about the comedy scene here in Belfast, and last year you had a comedians boxing event at the Ulster Hall, which you've announced recently that you are bringing back this year. How did all that come about, and And what's the kind of the hopes for this year's event?
I would love to sit and tell you an inspiring story about someone who asked us to put on a charity event and we all came together. I don't know, because I'm not the guy you go to with planning. I'm the guy you go to that they're like, we need someone to do something very ridiculous, and we know you'll do it. That's my role. So I have no idea how it came about. I don't know how it was planned. All I know is they went, "Can you be ring girl?" And I went and bought a crop top and jeggings.
It was quite a snug fit, just like your wrestling t-shirts. For what I remember watching it.
You wait and see what I've got this year, man. You wait and see.
Brilliant.
I'll be coming out dressed like Kelly. I'm gonna look beautiful. I don't know. I show up wearing women's clothes and get drunk. That's what that night is for me, and it's very fun. But I feel like everyone else puts so much work into the training, and they really give it their all. It becomes their life for a number of months, which is very hard when you're on the road as a comic to train and eat like a boxer at the same time. And I feel bad because they do all that. I eat like shit for months. I get drunk, and everybody loves it because I'm wearing a skirt.
Well, I was listening to Shane and Paddy talking, I think it was last week's Tea With Me, and they were saying that Mickey Bartlett's been training since, November for this, so he's proper taking it serious.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm not being funny when I say they take it ridiculously seriously, and they all act like, oh, it's all for charity. No one wants to lose. None of them want to get beaten by another comic, so they take it more seriously than they even let on they do. And because I'm not boxing, I love standing beside them and being like, oh, getting knocked out would be really embarrassing. Imagine all those people seeing you get beaten. Anyway, have a good one, mate. Like, I'm a bastard that entire night to people. It's very fun.
But that's all part and parcel of it, it's all part of the camaraderie that you guys have obviously got, and you've built up this amazing Belfast comedy scene to the point where you are doing stuff like the boxing. You said your Stars in Their Eyes, which you won, didn't you?
Yes.
At Limelight just before Christmas now.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Again, a lot of people put a lot of work into that. Some trained for months with routines, and I didn't know what song I was doing until the day before, because I'm so laid back that I just tend to not give a fuck a lot of the time, and that's what works best for me. Because everyone else had these amazing costumes, I showed up in a Robin costume and went, I think I'll do this song, and ended up winning. Which
you can't beat it.
It would piss me off if I'd be pissed off at me if I was like a proper, because a lot of them are great singers, very talented people, and I was fucking full of Haribo, out of breath 2 minutes in.
Well, it obviously did the job. Obviously worked for you to come away with a W. Now, I've mentioned there about the boxing. Have you ever considered doing comedy wrestling at all? Is that something that's ever been floated to you?
It is something I have mentioned to Shane before, and I think he likes the idea. I think doing it wouldn't have the impact that boxing has, because of the interest that the general public sort of has towards wrestling.
Yeah.
If you're not into that, it's all fake and it's all this, it's all that. I don't know if it would have the same impact. It's something I would love to do. I would love to get involved in wrestling in some capacity. It's very much something I'd love to do. I don't know if the rest of the boys would be up for it. I also don't think they'd be prepared for how physical and painful it is.
Well, that's the thing. I know that they put themselves through the ringer for the boxing and whatnot, but wrestling training is a completely different discipline as well, because it's cardio, it's fitness, it's hitting, it's taking bumps, it's all that, and
I could see a couple of them maybe taking 2 bumps and going, fuck this, I don't want to do that. Because bumps for like the first 3 months before you build up that like callus, they hurt like hell. They're so sore.
Aye. It's one of these things, because you're constantly aware of every part of your body hurting at any particular point in the ring. So it's different. You can train to get punched in the face quite a bit, but when it's every other bit of your body that's in agony, it's a completely different discipline.
Yeah, 100%. And even bumping itself, if you don't know what you're doing, like I was terrible at it. Every time I would bump, I never tucked my chin in right, so I would hit my head also. So the back would hit and then the neck would. And I ended up coming away with like a really injured neck from like 2 months of wrestling training.
So
Because
who was that you trained then?
I can't remember. Was it? I remember Tron was a guy taking it, and JDP. And this
that'd have probably been PWU, probably.
Yes, that's what it was.
That's when I started off. I started off with them. Well, it'd been 2017, 2018 kind of time. Started with them, but that was when they were training out of what is now the Range up at Butcher Road. It was the old B&Q warehouse.
Yes. So yeah, I trained for a while, dude. I've quickly realised I have no desire to be a wrestler. I would love to be a manager. I'd love to do.
I could see that.
I could like promos interest me more than actually get. I don't want to get hurt. You know, I would love to do that. Actual wrestling, I'm just not built for it. Just not my thing.
Not your thing, but you are built for putting on your WrestleMania show at Black Box on Saturday, the 6th of April. It's a good segue. 100%, that. It's a good segue.
Be a very funny show. Yes, outstanding segue from you there. 10 out of 10 work rate. The tickets are nearly sold out. They're only £5 in. It's a pilot. We're just seeing how the show runs through. Will it be funny? Will we do another one? It will be funny. We've got very funny people on.
Black Box is a good spot as well. It's really, really good space. The last Titanic show that I commentated on was in there during about Halloween time. And, you know, you just about managed to get the ring in it. Low ceiling had a bit of effect. In fact, Big Tron was having to stoop to get in for his match in there. But yeah, it's something I'm going to look to get along to myself. I'll be fully loaded with Links Africa, and everybody else that wants to go, I would advise them to do the same as well.
Yeah, fans, go on, please wash. Please get rid of the stereotype that wrestling fans smell like stale sausage rolls. Just wash, and we'll have a good time.
Smashing. Thank you very much, Willie. And also, a lot of our listenerships in Scotland. Are you over there at the Fringe this year at all? Are you touring over in Scotland with your new show?
Yes, I'll be over doing the Edinburgh Fringe. I'm doing the Underbelly. I can't remember the room, at 5 to 7. So I will be there.
Good stuff. Well, listen, Willie, thank you very much for joining us on the Heat Sheet. Cheers.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
So there you are. That was William Thompson. As I said before, look up anything you can to do with him, especially the Mudblood podcast, which he hosts alongside fellow Northern Irish comedian Paddy McDonnell. He also makes regular appearances on the likes of Tea With Me with Shane Todd, No Blasters with Kieran Bartlett, and you can see him at the Edinburgh Fringe this year, as he mentioned in the chat there as well. So thanks very much, William, and hopefully we'll get you on again sometime soon. Now, from one man who's on the television in Northern Ireland to what... in fact, no, sorry, it's page 3 we go to here, isn't it? Getting ahead of myself. We're going to go to the gossip pages now of this week's Heat Sheet with the most tantalising and tasty headlines and bits of gossip we can find. So, Steve, I'll come to you first. What is your nugget of gossip for this week's paper?
Well, we've alluded to it earlier, and it's this new WWE Speed show that's starting up on X soon. I quite like the premise of this. It's basically 3 matches, hence why it's called Speed. Unfortunately, no, it's not about a bunch of wrestlers taking LSD or acid or anything like that. It's just guys having quick 3-minute matches. The gossip side of it is apparently there's going to be a championship involved as well. Now, a lot of fans these days are a bit tired of all the championships that are involved in wrestling these days, especially on the AEW side. AEW, to my count, is now getting 10 championships. And then
they've got quite an abundance.
Aye. WWE already has too many as well. I'm actually not against having lots of championships. If anything, I say more, the more the merrier. As long as they're given a distinction, do you know what I mean? Like that, and as long as they're given airtime, and I think this is a good way of using one. I think it's going to give guys that don't get a lot of time on Raw, SmackDown finally something to do, and build up their profile, become a bit of a bigger star. I rhymed off names earlier, guys like Cedric Alexander, Axiom, Ilya Dragunov. I can see guys like that coming into it a lot, because it's going to primarily be guys with an indie style, isn't it? Fast paced, high spot stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be their time to shine in all this.
So almost like a reboot of the Cruiserweight Classic, almost.
That's what I think they're doing. I think they're wanting to capitalise more on a younger audience, isn't it? Because it's a social media based thing, and if you're doing it based on social media, especially if it's Twitter or TikTok, it's because you're trying to get a younger audience. In an era where everybody below the age of 35 seems to have ADHD, it's so hard to keep everybody's attention span these days. So you've got to think outside the box a wee bit, and having 3-minute wrestling matches is a good way of doing that. And if you're going to throw a championship in it, that's really good as well. That's a good way of building a star. I think this could also be a way of a new way of transitioning somebody from NXT to the main roster. I'm thinking Trick Williams could be used here. He's a guy that we know they want to push heavily. This could be their way of slowly transitioning him into the main roster.
So have they announced like the rules around it, or is it just basically they've got 3 minutes? Is it, does it go to a pinfall? What happens if there's no finish after 3 minutes?
I was thinking that myself as well. It was in terms of like difference and sort of uniqueness of it, like how far can you go with the 3 minutes? Obviously, a lot can be done in 3 minutes, but as Noam Dar said on Twitter, but it just
there's somebody that seems like it's made for as well. Like will
there be a lot of draws? Will that get old? Will the finishes?
I'm not going into like details of of the rules of it. It's just been promoted as every second counts. Your favourite superstars will go head to head in 3-minute matches, where the WWE Speed Championship is the ultimate prize. Premieres April 3rd, so it's
next Wednesday.
I think that stinks of. We're not sure where it's going to go yet, but we'll put it out for you anyway and see what the reaction is.
They've got previous with this kind of thing, because they had a lot of the mixed match challenge take place on Facebook.
Yeah, that was a fucking first foray into social media only content.
My kind of worry about it is like what's the longevity of it? So say you've got take JD McDonough, we spoke about him, like take him as somebody that's probably a prime candidate for this, right? If he can beat somebody in 3 minutes, then that's all that you'd essentially say that's a squash if you're beating somebody in 3 minutes. So when he goes to have matches that are longer than that, you're like, well, if he can beat this guy in 3 minutes, why can he not beat somebody else on the main on a Raw or a SmackDown in 3 minutes? And what does that do for somebody that gets beaten under 3 minutes?
It's chess versus speed chess. It's that theory. Like it's like to take two chess champions. One might be able to beat them in speed chess, but the other will dominate them in a traditional kind of game, or snooker versus pool. I think there's a legend I heard once that Ronnie O'Sullivan can beat everybody in a. Oh no, sorry, not Ronnie O'Sullivan. Mark Williams it is, right? Mark Williams can beat everybody in a traditional like 19 frame snooker match, but in one game of pool he's lousy against everybody because he hates pool, because pool's played much quicker and it's on a much smaller table. So they could go with that in a kayfabe sense, Like, and then it can maybe spell out the feuds in the main roster where they say, all right, you beat me on speed within 3 minutes. Let's see how you can do it in a traditional 20-minute time limit when, you know, you're when I've got time to kind of dissect you a wee bit. Because, like, traditionally, in a traditional wrestling match, a heel dominates the majority of it, doesn't it? But this is going to be very different. This is going to be both guys quickly trying to hit their finisher and to beat the other.
I don't imagine there'll be many lockups or a lot of chain wrestling involved in it.
I think this is what they're aiming for it for. Like, they've probably done studies where how can we get more young people into wrestling, and like you show them like doing headlocks and headlock takeovers, and like these days when young people get fuck all attention span and say nah, not for me. So they've designed this thing where they just go straight into it with the Spanish flies and fucking Hurricane Ranas, and it's all the look at the shiny stuff.
And Lewis, do you think that Twitter or X is the right platform for it? You know, if they are looking at that younger market, and with the way that Twitter is just now, do you think it would maybe have been better served as something on TikTok or something like that?
Do you know? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you know why it's not TikTok? Because US is trying to ban it.
Oh, well, that could be. That could be. I'm sure.
I think that as well, having it on Twitter is quite a good thing of like obviously the accessibility of it and stuff like that, and with the shortness that it's going to be, I think that it wouldn't be picked up by anybody else anyway. You know, it wouldn't have its own bit. You don't want to cut any time out of SmackDown or Raw or even Netflix or that. Who knows in the future if it's going to be a quick Netflix show, something like that. But I think having something readily available where it can get clicks and impressions and everything as soon as possible can get onto the internet by being there already, as opposed to having to go through TV to go into the internet, or WWE having to post about it and tweet about it. Just the more impressions that it gets from the younger audience who are already sitting on their phones. You know what I mean? They don't have to take time out of their day to find a dodgy stream or watch Raw at 1 a.m. or whatever. It's just there for them to do anyway. I think that'll work well.
I've also read I think they're also like the USA and Fox and all the other media partners have got. So TNT here, they're going to share it on their platforms as well, on their pages. So it's not just WWE. It's all the partners that are going to be sharing the content as well.
Cool. You'd mentioned at the start of that wee section there, Steve, about it's not going to be wrestlers on acid. My mind immediately went to wrestlers fighting on a bus that's got a bomb on it, and they need to finish the match before the bus goes under 30 mile an hour or whatever the plot to speed.
Do you know something
the movie was?
I'm fairly sure that happened in Japan in the 90s. One time, it sounds like something that Atani would do.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Well, that's a good bit of gossip there. Lewis, have you got anything to rival it?
I just wanted to quickly sort of talk about the gossip of there only being 10 matches on the WrestleMania card so far over 2 nights, a week out from the show. So I was just getting your opinions on what you think they're going to do with it, or what matches you think might be added in the next week, if there's enough time to do so, or are we going to get 2 3-hour shows, or are they going to fill it with different things?
I read it's as long as 12 hours. It's going to be 6 hours both nights. So
five shows each match? 5 matches each show, sorry.
Well, no, they'll probably throw in a couple of things. Well, are they doing the Andre Battle Royal again? They usually do that pre-show, don't they?
We're a week out. I've seen a couple of rumoured matches of Damage Control versus potentially Belair, Cargill, and is it Liv Morgan maybe? Or someone.
So I've brought up the card as it is just now. So we've got undisputed WWE Universal Championship match: Cody Rhodes v Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins versus The Rock and Roman, Seth against Drew, Bayley and Io Sky for the Women's Championship, Becky and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship, the United States Championship, Triple Threat, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, Sammy versus Gunther for the Intercontinental, Jay versus Jimmy, undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship 6-pack ladder match with all of those teams in it, and LA Knight versus AJ Styles are the only. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 matches confirmed on there. There's no match for Dirty Dom. I've noticed on there. There is.
I tell you why. I think he'll come out and do his own segment. That could actually be where Stone Cold comes in and stuns him. I think that's where that's been saved for. I also think we'll get something involving Cena. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe an open challenge.
I think as well as with that, it's the last couple of years it's been different to this year because they've had sort of an overspill of matches where you're kind of surprised if matches aren't on the card. They have to push it into a WrestleMania SmackDown. Before it, so you've got Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. You've had things like, you'd imagine there'll be a sort of multi-man match between the Pride, so Lashley, Street Profits versus the AOP and Cross. That hopefully finds its way at the show.
There's no women's tag team match on that card either. And I think that's, from how they performed as women's tag team champions, you need to have, in my opinion, you need to have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven on there in some.
No, they deserve something.
Yep. I know they're not champions.
Is he getting going on?
Andrade, unless there's two undecided teams for the tag team championship 6-pack. So you'd imagine that some sort of Legado del Fantasma will be chucked in there.
I think you've got there's two finals. I'm sure is it the Street Profits versus Waller in theory, and then you've got the LWO versus the AOP. I'm sure those are the 4 teams that are gonna fight to fill those 2 spots. Whether there's shenanigans, whether there's nonsense, whether there's more matches added or whatever, I don't know, but it's looking a wee bit light, I think.
You've got to imagine that they'll have the Andre Battle Royal on the main show, or even on the pre-show. I don't think they'll do that in SmackDown this year, because there certainly seems to be time for it. I mean, you can imagine that the tag match, the Cody and Seth against the Rock and Roman, the entrances for that will be 20 minutes.
I think they're going to also save time to do like an ECW tribute with Heyman going into the Hall of Fame. I could see them doing that could be Theory and Waller's thing, maybe where they come out trash Philadelphia, and then all the ECW boys come out like Streamer, Sandman, the Dudleys, and then they just absolutely smash those pieces. Aye.
The Dudleys coming out and Piper Niven setting about Bubba Ray like she did on Twitter over the weekend would be class. I was also hoping as well, and I know that it's highly unlikely, but they're in Philadelphia. One of the greatest episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was the one that Rowdy Roddy Piper was in. See, one of the tag teams needs to come out as the Birds of War from the gang wrestles for the troops. Have Seal sing Kiss from a Rose for them to come to the ring. Just, I think they're missing a trick if they don't. And again, with the status that Rob McElhenney and Charlie Day have these days, I'd love to see them like turn up.
Charlie Day is a big wrestling fan.
Aye. That whole episode of Always Sunny is one of my top 5 of all time. So it'd be good if there was some kind of nod to that if they don't have the guys themselves there.
Have you heard the really wild bit of gossip?
No, I have not.
Right, it's 90% bullshit. It ain't going to happen. But
like podcast.
MJF, partner series talk of him turning up at WrestleMania. It won't happen. But the fact that there's even like a 10% possibility, and a few are actually predicting it, makes you think maybe there's something in it.
Get him in Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Just no entrance, just appear in there.
Is he the last of the Cody Avengers?
Yes.
Like
Oh,
you get Cena, Stone Cold, Seth, all
Goldust.
backing up Goldust, and then all of a sudden, the Burberry scarf floats into view. It's an interesting one to posit for it, but I mean we've only got like what 9 days, 9 days to
Mhm.
wait to find out how everything's going to stack up. So it's going to be quite the WrestleMania.
I was just actually thinking, do you think this could be, if everything goes as well as you think, do you think it has the potential of overtaking 17 as the greatest ever Mania?
I think so. I think it should do. You know, like with WrestleMania 17, the matches that were on it. You obviously had the gimmick battle royal. You had was it Jericho and Regal to start
Jericho
it off.
Regal with Intercontinental.
You had the triple threat hardcore match between Raven, Kane, and Big Show. It was a clusterfucking nonsense in that WrestleMania, but that's what made it good. You know, it was just randomness. Was maybe the WrestleMania before it where it was the Hardcore Invitational, where Crash Holly and Hardcore
Aye.
Holly and Viscera and all that. It was just
Aye, the one where Crash Holly very nearly died at the end because he
Yeah.
was bleeding that fucking much.
aye, it was a complete just mess of a WrestleMania that was just so brilliant because of it. And this has got all the markings of sort of replicating that, but in a more professional, wrestling orientated way. So
Because like every
if it-
match,
yeah.
every match that we've just rounded off there has got a heavily weighted storyline going into
Yeah.
it that's all been
And if
very
it's not top three, if it's not top three WrestleManias of all time, they've done something seriously wrong. Put it that way, I'd say.
Yep, that's a great shout, and I think I'm going to go with that as our gossip for this week. Our gossip pick for page 3, and the headline that I'm going to go with on that one is Mania XL's tentative goated card. So we'll go with that on there. Now, we will round things off this week with our TV pages. So what have you guys been putting in your eyeballs that is wrestling related, but not necessarily wrestling?
I'm not getting big to go with here. I had a rare day off, so I was catching up on all the wrestling going on this week, and we're getting to that because it's the week before Mania. We're getting all the kind of, we're going into overdrive in a way of all the wrestling content that every big YouTube channel's putting out. And What Culture, they put out a really good one today. They're highlighting all the wrestlers that's got a story to finish this year and what that story is. And it just reminded us what we've just touched on, how it seems like everybody in the main roster's got a big story going on, and the potential that they've got of how it finishes. So the obvious ones are obviously Cody and Drew, but there's also ones that you forget. There was there's Sheamus. Sheamus is still to win the Intercontinental title. He's actually my pick of eventually dethroning Gunther. I would love to see that happen. It would be his sort of messy winning the World Cup moment in a way, because it's the one trophy that's not in his cabinet. Not going to happen at WrestleMania, of course. He's still injured. There's also Chad Gable as well. He's in that Intercontinental title picture. It feels like, despite being a big fan favourite and obviously very highly thought of by management because he's a great all-round performer, he sadly still hasn't got that big defining star-making moment. He very nearly had it against Gunther. Was it just before Christmas he had that match with him? Where legit looked like he was the one going over, but again it was thwarted, and it was a really emotional moment because his two daughters were at the ringside and all that. So he's got the chance to come back around and get another go at Gunther eventually. And you've also got Dom in a way. Like, where does Dom go next? Because eventually he's going to have to break out from Judgment Day, and how's he going to, what's he going to look like when maybe Rhea dumps him? Because I think one of the theories is that Becky beats her at Mania, loses the title, and she goes in a kind of a mad downward spiral, and in a way she blames Dom for it. Where would that leave Dom? Does it go babyface, or does it go even more heel and maybe cost Rhea in a rematch or something like that? And there's Damien Priest.
I think that's the biggest story that we don't know an answer to, is the Priest one. Because as it stands, if he cashes in on Cody or Roman or Seth or Drew, at this point, it's going to give so much heat to him, but not good heat. Good heat.
I feel sorry for him in a way, because he's probably the most awkward Money in the Bank winner there's ever been, because it's not his fault in a way. It's they didn't when they put the briefcase on him, they didn't anticipate CM Punk signing. They didn't anticipate The Rock coming back, and and have all this insane storyline going on. So it's hard to see where it goes with that. Does it? I don't think it'll do it at WrestleMania, because you said, like you said, Chris, the heat on that would be fucking nuclear, and it just wouldn't go over well. They could do something the night the Raw after. Imagine if Cody were to win, and then the next night in Raw, when he's getting his kind of Champions Parade, out comes Priest and challenges him, and he beats him for it. I mean, that would be brutal.
Unless they do something like they did with Theory and have him end up cashing in on a lesser title.
Aye, well, they teased it with Gunther, didn't they? Like he said to Gunther, like, I want your belt, and I've held up the case, and I've got my ticket to it right here.
That would maybe make the most sense, I think, because that way Gunther, if Gunther gets beat off of Money in the Bank cash in, it keeps him strong. And it's a losing upwards situation that can then push Gunther into that. But again, they've got
babyface as well.
They've got Bash in Berlin coming up. Are they going to keep the belt on him for as long as that?
Surely they do, man.
It's interesting. Interesting
I think
times.
I think that in the similar vein that I had Priest to beat Cody after he finally finishes the story, I think someone finally beating Gunther and Sami Zayn, with Sami Zayn having all the crowd behind him, followed by just a briefcase to the back of the head, and Priest beating him after he's beat Gunther, allowing Gunther those 4 months to get a world title match at Bash in Berlin. I think that, like, I've even been turned off the fact of I've been the biggest advocate for having the biggest fuck you to Cody Rhodes fans and having him win and then lose, but I think having the title get off Gunther with, holy fuck, someone's just done it, and then having Priest beat Sami, I think that has the same effect, if not better, than it would be for Cody. It doesn't really derail anything, but it can start something new with Priest, Judgment Day, Sami, Gable, everyone, and I think that's the best way to do it, personally, anyway.
No, that's a good shout. So that was What Culture that had that.
The title of it was 10 WWE wrestlers who have to finish their story in 2024.
Smashing. I'll get on to that, no doubt. And Lewis, what about yourself? What's been making you go square-eyed this week?
It's not something I've watched, it's something I'm going to watch. It's the Roman Reigns Legends biography, in which it's the first wrestler that I actively seen enter the scene at a reasonable age. So I must have been about 12 or something when Roman Reigns first came on the scene. Sorry, mate.
That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
12, 13 or something when Roman Reigns first came on the scene, and it's the first wrestler from that sort of pre-2000, post-2010s that's been referred to as a legend.
Bulldog, yours was Roman Reigns. Fucking hell.
Oh, hell. It's the first one post-2010 that's been referred to as a legend internally in WWE. So that is the first time I felt old watching wrestling. So, sorry guys. But yeah, that's sort of a career overview of Roman Reigns as well as Paul Heyman, because of the Hall of Fame, obviously, as one to look out for, and it's been a long career for Roman so far with his 3 years title reign, obviously his cancer, his Shield, everything. It's just that it's pretty much already a Hall of Fame career he's had, so it's going to be a good watch when it comes out.
Is this the document that the soundbite was released off today with Paul Heyman saying that Roman had pretty much told him he was retiring during the COVID times?
Mm-hmm. And the one with you seen where Roman's talking vividly about the 2015 Royal Rumble, all that sort of stuff. It pulls the curtain back a wee bit on Roman Reigns that we've maybe no seen, a bit more about Joe as well. So it's going to be an interesting one anyway.
Is it also going to talk about his football career? Because I heard something that there was a snippet of that, how he was depressed a lot after the Minnesota Vikings released him, because his dreams were to be a footballer, and he did get to an NFL side, but he get caught less than one season in his contract. I think he mentioned that he was in a deep depression for a long time as well.
I've not seen too much into it, but I guess we'll see.
Maybe that was the A&E documentary, because I know they're making that for him as well.
Cool. Again, that sounds like something awesome. And if it's a WWE produced documentary, then those very rarely fail. Those are always box office to watch on that. So again, that's two awesome picks to look out for this week. If the in-ring stuff isn't getting you going, there's a couple of other things to go for as well. So yeah, that kind of wraps up this week's heat sheet for us. I'll go back through the headlines that we have. So our front page, we're going with Monday Night Rawsome after the biggest and best Monday Night Raw in about 25 years. Lewis took the back page with JD and Ricochet goes down smoothly. Again, I couldn't think anything better for that. Just JD pun, because Jack Daniels and all that. And Lewis also took the gossip page as well with Mania XL's tentative goated card. So it's been a great show, all in. We've packed in quite a lot, and we're going to be packing in even more over the next few weeks. We've got some cracking interviews lined up. We've dropped some pretty heavy hints on who we are going to be having on next week. But for now, Heatseekers, we'll just leave you with a bit of tenterhooks in regards to that. We're out of time, so say goodbye. Say goodbye, lads. Say goodbye. That was your cue. Say goodbye.
Just enjoy wrestling.